And record. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Del Mastro. I am with the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center. Thank you very much for joining us today. I have Sarah Doran here as well. She's also from the MSBDC. So for those of you who are not familiar with who we are, we're actually a national group. We have locations throughout the U.S. And we provide free business consulting to small businesses. We were born out of Congress in the 80s, and our charter is to help small businesses in many different ways, from helping you get funding to just working out on financial models, working on business plans. For those businesses that are looking to expand, we can help you with that. And even on the backside, if you're looking to sell and or buy, we can help you with those services as well. So that's kind of who we are. So today's presentation is kind of a digital beginning, is what we call it. So when you start a business, there's some fundamental things that you do kind of on the mechanical side, right? You get an EIN number, you register your LLC with the state, you go out, you get a bank account, and you get a Visa card. So kind of real basic stuff that you do. On the digital side, I think there's also 6 things that you need to configure or consider. And those are the 6 things that we're going to go over today. So at the end of each section, we'll take a pause with questions. If you have any questions, just type them into the chat, and we will get to them at the end of each section. We do have a lot of stuff to cover today. It is all at a very high level. We actually offer webinars on each of these 6 specific topics, which obviously we go into much more detail. But the goal today is to just trying to get you knowledgeable of what's out there, what you should be doing, and then kind of go from there. All right.
And just a reminder, if you are here, if you all could mute yourselves, just so we don't have any background noise. And obviously, when you have a question, feel free to unmute. Okay, Rob, roll
All right.
on.
We're ready to roll.
We're ready to roll.
Okay. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is a domain. All right. So when you're starting your business, you're going to look to have a domain name, so you can have a website, so you can have an email address. It kind of all begins with the domain, or often referred to as a URL. So a URL is, or a domain, think of it kind of like the GPS of the internet. It's really an address pointer. It tells people where your website is. It tells people where your email addresses are. And it actually contains a whole bunch of information behind. So kind of this information that I have on the screen here is all the techie stuff. There are a bunch of records that are behind a domain that kind of define where all the stuff is, right? So we're not going to get into the technical side of things, but the important thing to know is you buy a domain, and there are numerous places where you can actually buy a domain, right? So I've listed a couple of them here, but there are literally hundreds of places where you can buy a domain. Your domain kind of resides where you buy it. So let's just say you buy it on GoDaddy. All right. So now your domain kind of is sitting in GoDaddy servers. Then you said, okay, I'm going to have a website now, and I'm going to put that website on Squarespace. So now you kind of tell GoDaddy, okay, now point my website address over to here. And then let's just say you decide to have your email with Microsoft. So then it's called an MX record, gets edited and says, okay, now my emails is over here. So it's a little complicated because you can have your domain with GoDaddy, you can have your website with Squarespace, and you can have your email with Microsoft, but they're all using the same domain name. And that's okay. And that's really kind of how the internet world is set up. And it's all these address pointers in the background that make sure everything gets to the right place. So just one thing to always remember, I know a lot of you have people create your websites, create your emails. If you do, just make sure you and your business own the domain. All right. Somebody may set it up for you. That's great. Just make sure you are the owner of that domain. I can tell you a bunch of horror stories of where the developer actually went out and purchased the domain under their name and then held the business, kind of forced them to use them to pay them because they didn't have control of their domain. So just a word of advice, always buy your own domain and then allow others to kind of alter it as you do websites and things. There's a thing out there called the Who Is database. When you buy a domain, a couple of things that you define when you buy it is how long are you going to own it? Most of us just buy it for a year and just renew it every year. And then there's protection that you can put on it. And the whole idea of the protection is it kind of blocks your personal information and prevents spam from happening. So every URL out there, you can go to a Who Is database, put in the URL, and it's going to return this kind of information out there. So what this is telling us is it was created on 4/19/21. It's going to expire a year later. If I look down here, I can see, okay, this domain is actually housed by Google. And if I didn't protect this, I actually own this domain. All of my personal information would show up here. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to click there. Would show up here. And, people go out, they grab that information and they start spamming you. So it's always good to choose protection when you buy your domain, just so you're not getting spammed. If somebody ultimately wants to buy your domain, what they do in this particular case, they would contact Google. Google would then contact me and say, there's someone out there who's interested in buying your domain. And that's how protection works. So like I said, there's hundreds of places you can buy your domain. The example I'm going to give you here today is buying it on Google. I use Google to buy all of my domains. I find that they're the easiest to buy a domain. And one of the best things about Google domains or domains purchased on Google is that other applications talk nice to Google. So when I go to Squarespace and I say I want to now point my domain to my website, those two companies already know how to talk to each other, and it kind of just happens automatically. If you've purchased your domain on a kind of a mongrel facility, you're going to actually have to go in to that place where you purchased it. You're going to have to edit those records. It can get ugly really quick if you're not all that technical. Couple things to note on this screen and about domains in general. So I went in and I said, I love my job. All right. What I found is that the .com and the .net are not available, as you can see here. The .org is available and the .us is available. And then what Google does and all the other facilities is they kind of give you variations for you to think about if your domain is not available. Couple of things that I wanted to draw your attention to is .org, $2,000 to buy this domain. Likewise, down here, myjob.love is $84. So these are called premium domains. Generally, if you string together a couple of words that have meaning, the internet gods are going to say that's a premium domain and they're going to charge you more for it. It's unlikely that you're going to come across this, but if you happen to see something at a crazy rate, that's why. The more popular the phrase is, the more expensive the domain is. 95% of the time, it's going to be $12 on Google to buy a domain. It's one of the reasons why I like Google. It's I think the cheapest out there to buy a domain. I know other facilities will charge you upwards of $40 for a domain. Then they'll charge you an extra $20 to protect it. Google provides protection for free. So for $12, you get your domain and you get protection turned on for free. So again, I'm not endorsing Google. I do think they are a good product and it is a very reasonable price. But there are plenty of other facilities out there for you if you want to use them. So a couple of words about extensions. So that's the .com, the .net, the .org. So .com, as we all know, is kind of the standard out there. It's kind of what everyone strives to get. .org, reserved for nonprofits. .edu is a very special one. If you notice, Google here doesn't even offer .edus. There's a process that you have to go through to prove that you're an educational facility to actually get the edu extension. International gov, we all know from all local and state and federal sites are the .gov. The interesting thing out there is, the IANA is the organization that kind of monitors all domains out there. There's 1,589 extensions that you could choose from. So you really can kind of go wild with that if you want. My opinion and my advice, always use the .com, unless of course you're a nonprofit and you use the .org. If you look for a domain and the .com's gone and you say, well, fine, I'm just going to use .info or .us, that's fine. It's just somebody else has the coveted .com, and there's always that chance that somebody's going to go to their website looking for you. So that's why I kind of always recommend find a URL that works for you that ends in .com. Just again, my 2 cents. I know a lot of people who have different domain extensions other than .com, and that's fine. Let's see. All right. So I think that's it for domains. Does anybody have any questions about domains? Again, you can buy them really from anywhere. I just make sure it's a reputable place that you have them, that you buy it from. Reputable meaning that that a lot of people use that facility. That's kind of really the start of your email and your website, and even registering with Google and even SEO. So the next 3 or the next 4 things that we're going to talk about all really kind of assume that you've purchased a domain.
Rob?
Yep.
One question. What do we need to do to maintain the domain?
So if you mean by maintaining it, you have to pay for it every year. So, you can purchase, when you purchase it, you can purchase multiple years at the same time. There's really no maintenance that you do with a domain other than when you maybe move your website or create a website, or you get an email and you now want to point your email to that. Like I said, a lot of the tools like Microsoft and Google and Network Solutions and Squarespace, whenever you say, I want to point my website to there, they've actually got logic in the background that they work and try to do it themselves. But every once in a while, you may have to go in and edit one of those records if you're using a not so common facility to purchase your domain. Okay, so servers are separate than domain, correct? Yep. Once you buy a domain, you have to go find a service company, correct? So you buy a domain and you're right, it just kind of sits out there. It's really not doing anything at that point. So then you need to find a website. Either you're going to use a provider like a Squarespace or a Wix or Shopify. Those are website servers that you can build your website on and then point your domain to that. So those are 2 separate things, yes. Same thing with email. You may have your email with Microsoft. Those are email servers and you need to point your domain to that, but they are 2 separate things. A domain is just the name. You buy the name and that gives you the right then to use it for your website and for your email. Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, so we're going to go on to professional emails. So what do I mean by a professional email? So, I mean, we all have Gmail, free Gmail accounts, free Yahoo accounts, and those are great for our personal life. what I mean by a professional email starts to start talking about your brand and, you know, your identity. You want people to understand who your business is, and you want to be consistent between, you know, your website and your emails. They all should present themselves in a uniform fashion. So, you know, I am an employee of Clark University, so, you know, these are all emails that are a legitimate email. rob.delmastro@clarku.edu, rob@clarku. So however you want to format your name, number one, just be consistent across your organization. And two, really any combination or any format is fine, and then your domain name. I've seen too many people use their personal emails for their business. sexykitty32@yahoo.com. I guess it all depends on what it is you're selling. But for the most part, that's not an email that you want to use for your business. Or even rob32@yahoo.com really doesn't do much for your brand and for your presentation of your business. I've also seen a lot of you use my business name @yahoo.com. So if my business was Clearly Works, it'd be Clearly Works @yahoo.com. To me, that just screams I'm a one-person business. And again, it's all about that brand and the way you want to present yourself. I don't recommend doing something like that. And then again, there's even people that will use the info@yourdomain.com. And again, what does that say? That says, I don't want to tell you who I am, but I have this generic folder that you can use. Having an info at your domain is great for your website, because that'll help you prevent spamming to your personal email, but it shouldn't be your primary email that you use for your business. The one caveat I'm going to say to having your email and your website having the same domain, for those of you that have long names, long personal names and long business names, is a horrible combination because it'll never fit in a lot of the small spaces that you've got to put your email. So the example that I have down here is, you know, if my domain was clearlyworksconsultinggroup.com and my name's Rob Del Mastro and I liked the rob.delmastro, I mean, that is really long, rob.delmastro@clearlyworksconsultinggroup.com. What I've seen people do, and I'm okay with this, is buy a second domain, clearlyworkscg, and do a rob at, and that kind of shortens your email. The reality is once you've sent an email to someone, it kind of gets stored in their email system and they never type it again. But I ran a business called Clearly Co-working Inc. in my name, Rob Del Mastro, that it was just way too long. So I went out and bought another URL that shortened it. And so your website will point to clearlyworksconsultinggroup.com. Your website will also, if somebody types clearlyworkscg.com, will also go to your website, but then you can also use it for your email. So that may be a little confusing, but it does allow, you know, you can do that, and it works great for those of you with long business names. I'm going to give you two examples of buying email. The two kind of powerhouses that are out there are Microsoft and Gmail. I'm just going to go over those quickly. Like I said, there are other facilities out there, obviously, that provide email. I like these two the best. They provide an extreme high level of security for your email. We'll get into that when we talk about cybersecurity, but your emails are encrypted with both Microsoft and Gmail when you buy the Gmail business things. Microsoft Office, Microsoft 365 offers three options. The first option is comparable to the Gmail's kind of basic option. Everything is in the web. So you get all of the Microsoft products, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, they're all web-based. And when you move to this version here, you actually get the physical software that you can put on your PC. And I think for every user that you have, the software can go on 3 different PCs, which is really nice. When you get into this version here, this is for high-end businesses that need access to Azure, which is their online servers and such. For the most part, you know, this is where we live, the $5 and the $12.50. So this is per user per month is what these fees are. And if you buy a Microsoft account, a 365 account, you can then obviously point your domain to that, to your email. Likewise with Gmail. So now they're actually calling it Google Workspace instead of Gmail. They've got really two versions that are applicable to a small business. Their $6 a month per user version is basically you get a professional email, you can hook your domain up to it, and you get all of their online tools available. When you go to their business standard, you start getting more space, and basically it's more space is really what they're providing at that higher level thing. The nice thing about Google is when you buy your domain, so this little window over here, you buy your domain, you set it privacy protection on, auto renew on. If you just check this little box right here, you instantly have an email address with your new domain. It's really simple. Google does it. So, and it just starts immediately. There's no setup. There's nothing to do. With Microsoft, once you've created your account, you do have to go into the admin panel and just choose an option to attach a domain to your email. It's not all that difficult, but it is something you can do.
Rob, can I interrupt you?
You can.
Nancy wants to know, do you need to get two URLs in the prior example where the email does not match the business domain?
You do. You need to buy both of those URLs, so that you can do that. And like I said, the second one, the shorter one, which was clearly works, cg.com, you point that one to your email, but you can also point that to your website. But yes, you do need to purchase both of those domain names. When I ran my businesses, I actually purchased 5, 6, 7 domains out there that somebody may type that would resemble my business. So I ran a co-working space here in Worcester. So I bought the domain Worcester Co-working, or co-working in Worcester. I just bought a whole bunch of things that, number one, helped with my SEO, and two, you just never know if that's a keyword or something somebody's going to type, and it would then bring them to my website. So for a web page, for a website, you can have as many URLs as you want point to that website. And it's just, like I said, it's something I encourage. If there's, appropriate URLs you can buy at $12 a year, it's a pretty good, a good marketing expense. All right. Any other questions on emails? As I said, I'm kind of whizzing through all these things at a high level, but okay. Websites. We're not going to spend a significant amount of time on websites because it's a very big project. Just a couple of points that I'm going to talk about it. Pay or do it yourself. The second bullet is a very valid business. When you're starting a business, you got a lot to do. Sometimes you just don't have time to get your website up, and it makes sense to pay someone to do it for you. But there are advantages to both. If you do pay someone to do it, you have to think about who's going to write your content. Probably needs to be you, because you're the one that understands your business. And then who's going to create your graphics, your logo, your branding for that website. A lot of times the website companies will also do branding for you. The most important thing here is this bullet right here. How do you edit it afterwards if you pay someone to create it? And that I've just seen it happen too many times where people hire people to do their websites. They produce this beautiful website, but they do it in a technology that isn't very easy for the average person to go in and maintain. And then you're forever then needed to go back to them to make edits, to make changes. A lot of them will say, oh, I'm going to do it in WordPress, and WordPress is a great product, but it's not very intuitive for the average person who is not technically inclined. So all I'd have to say is, make sure that the end result is a website that you have the ability to edit when you want to edit, if that's something that you're interested in. And then the other thing is always have a firm understanding of where your website is hosted. You know, if you hire your nephew to build your website, even if he builds a great website, make sure he's got it hosted on a reputable place, not in his basement. There's all kinds of cybersecurity issues that, you know, arise out of having a website not being hosted in a professional facility. As you see kind of around the screen, I've got all these names, HostGator, Squarespace, Webflow, GoDaddy, Wix. There are a ton of these sites out there where you can host your website. Most of them are fairly reputable and good, but just make sure that it's kind of it is a reputable place. All right. So a few more thoughts. If you're technical, build your own site. There are great tools out there to do it. If you're really not afraid to try, there are services like Squarespace, Wix, Shopify that offer free trials and provide you with training. They've got demos, they've got templates. It's all drag and drop, and really no coding is needed. They're fabulous tools, and there are many of them out there. Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, Webflow. There's a whole bunch of them out there that are really good. Shopify is a great tool for if you're doing online sales. That's kind of the product that most people who are doing online sales use. If you have zero money to spend, which I know a lot of you don't have money, Google actually offers a free website tool. So you can build a website for free and have kind of a very basic presence on the web. It's an option. And then most additional website providers offer services like email marketing, scheduling tools, and point of sales integration. So whoever you pick, just make sure they have the products and the tools that you need to run your business. And then the last little comment that I have there is make sure you use Google Analytics. That's a whole webinar in itself, but it's a fabulous tool, free tool provided by Google that gives you a lot of insight as to how people are using your website, who's using your website, where are they coming from, what's the paths that they're taking to get to your website. Just a wealth of information. So just always, once you have a website up and running, hook it up with Google Analytics. Let's see. One other comment on websites. One of the things, so where you have your website hosted, make sure they have a guaranteed uptime. And if somebody says to you, I've got a 99% guaranteed uptime on surface, it sounds good. But the reality is that means it can be down for 7.2 hours a month. So 99% uptime is not good. If you add a decimal place, 99.9, now you're getting into an area which is pretty acceptable. So that comes out to 8 hours, almost 9 hours a year. Keep clicking, shouldn't be clicking. 9 hours a year where your website is down, not bad. 99.99 is where you want to live. That is 51 minutes out of the year that your website is down. So I believe both Microsoft and Google, they provide on the email side of things, on the website of things, they'll always have 99.99. Many of the reputable facilities that are out there also have 2 decimal places after the 99. Just something to think about.
Rob, can
Yes.
you confirm, do you need to buy service through Google to get Google Analytics?
You do not. All you need is a free Google email. And so all of the Google tools, and we'll actually go through a couple of them when we get through it into the SEO section. All you need is a free Google email. And once you have that email, you can get into Google Analytics, and you do have to put a little bit of code on your website. Google will give you kind of an ID, and you've got to put that ID on your website so Google can make the connection between the two. But it is 100% free. There's nothing you have to buy. Your domain doesn't have to be with Google. Nothing has to be with Google, and you can use their tools. All right. Any other questions on websites? So I got someone to create my website using Shopify. I find Shopify really easy to use, and they have a great support team. I would agree 100% with you. I've heard nothing but good things from Shopify. I think they're one of the top providers that are out there. My preference, I've always been a Squarespace guy. All of my websites have been done with them. And I think they've got a great product out there as well. But again, there's a lot of players in the game. All right, register with Google. I've actually got a full webinar that I've done. Actually, it's a two-part webinar because it's a fairly lengthy process. But Google, again, free. You don't need to have anything owned with Google other than their free email. Google allows you to, I guess, register your business with them. If ever you've done a search on a business and a little profile shows up on the right-hand side of your search, that's what I'm talking about. It's configuring that profile. So Google's the #1 search engine in the universe. Unfortunately, if you like them or not, you've got to learn to play with them. You can use this tool to help Google know about your business. The whole thing about SEO, and we'll talk about that in a minute, is somebody does a search, you want your website to show up, all right? And so registering your business with Google does a whole bunch of things. It tells Google a lot more about your business. It tells Google that you're an active business, which is vitally important on Google searches. It puts you on the map. If you ever wondered why businesses have those push pins on the maps, well, it's because they've registered their business with Google. Let's see. It's first step in improving your SEO, and it's free. It's a free marketing tool that's very easy to use and set up. Why wouldn't you use it? So just a comment about it. So every touch point you have with your customer is an important touch point. The first one is also vitally important. And that first touch point may be the first time they search for your business. And when they do, and they see that profile that shows up, like this one here, it's important that it says and represents itself as you want your business represented. So if you do not register your business with Google, and if you're a popular business, Google will actually go out and create one of these on its own based on the information it has gotten on your website, on your or from your customers. And it'll do its best to build this profile. As a business owner, you want complete control of this, and you want it to represent you as you want it to be. You know, what picture shows up at the top, what information is being displayed. It's vital that you take control of that and kind of govern what shows up here. So just a couple of facts, up to date. So this was based on a survey that was done in 2017. It's a little dated. Business profiles are 2.7 times more likely to be considered reputable. And then up-to-date profiles are 70% more likely to attract location visits and 50% more likely to lead to a purchase. So, you know, just think about your search habits when you go out and you search pizza near me. You know, if you find a profile that looks good, you're more inclined to click on that than the profile that has no information out there. It's just who we are. So how does one get a Google profile? If you actually Google your business and you see your profile show up, there will be a thing on the bottom that says own this business, claim now. So you definitely want to click there and claim it as your business. The irony here, and I've seen it happen, competitors click on their competitor's profile and lock it out from the actual owner from taking it. So Google doesn't do a great job in kind of governing that. They do send you a postcard, but you know, you can tell Google where to send that postcard, so it doesn't really help. So do you need a profile if you are strictly an online business? It's a great question. Technically, Google says you cannot use this if you're an online business. There are ways around that, and I would suggest you do those ways around it. You know, if you sell If you sell one item out of your house, maybe you're not just online. But what you can do with Google, one of the things as you go in and you set up your profile, you've got to give it an address. So it was really designed for that storefront. So you don't want to give your home address, but you can give a region. You can say, I sell, in Massachusetts. The reality is if you sell online, you sell around the world. But you can get around some of those things with Google by tricking it. So if your profile doesn't show up, you can just go to google.com/business and click on Manage Now, and it'll take you through the process. And as I said, it's a two-step process. You go in, you give Google some basic information. They then said, okay, I'm going to send you a postcard. Where do you want me to send it? You give them an address. They send you a postcard. In that postcard, there's a code. You go back into your account, you put in that code, it unlocks the rest of your profile that you can fill out, and then it enables you to publish it to be live. There is a wealth of information that you can put in this Google profile. You can do posts, you can sell things, you can put coupons, you can do events. I mean, like I said, it's a free marketing tool that I just highly recommend everyone taking advantage of. And the more information you put in here, the more information you're giving Google about who you are and what your business is, the better your SEO is going to be.
Rob, can you use a PO box or not?
You cannot use a PO box. Nope, they will not allow a PO box. So the way around a PO box, UPS stores offer suites. So at one point I had my consulting business, and the official address for my consulting business was 800 Main Street in my town, and I had a suite 287. And that is an acceptable, that's an acceptable thing for Google, but PO boxes are not acceptable. The UPS store, I think Staples also sells suite numbers. There's a couple facilities out there. If you've got a co-working space near you, a lot of the co-working spaces will provide suite numbers for you to use out of the co-working space. Whole bunch of options out there for you to use. I strongly recommend that nobody uses their home address as their business address, for all of the obvious reasons. All right, so we're a little bit behind, so I'm going to move on. If there's no more questions, I'll move on to SEO. So SEO, search engine optimization. What does that actually mean? People search for stuff, you want them to find your business. That's what it means. You want to make sure that when they're searching for stuff you sell or things that are related to your business, when they search, you want you to show up. There's a very complicated algorithm that Google uses that they don't share really with anybody. But there's some information that I can give you here today, very quick information. I actually have an entire webinar on this topic as well. But the thing to think about is, what do people search for that you want your business to show up? So what is there, I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy questions that you want your business to show up? And once you understand what that is, that kind of helps you figure out what answers, what keywords you need on your website, on your Google profile, and on your social media world that Google's going to find and say, oh, we got a match here. So let's put this company up here. It's just stuff to think about as you're building your website, as you're building your profile. Think about your customers. Think about what it is that they're searching. I'll actually give you some tools in a minute to help you with this, but what are the words that they're using to search that you want your website to come up, or your business? It doesn't have to be your website. So when someone searches, like I said, there's a really complicated algorithm out there, but Google takes the words that they've put in their search. They go out and they scan all of their billions of indexes that they've got out there of websites that they've found, and they return this is Google's words, relevant and useful results. All right. So what the heck does that mean? So I'm going to read this little thing down here at the bottom because this is directly from Google. So Google algorithms consider more than 200 factors or signals with every search. The signal includes basic things like your language and location. So that kind of gives you the near me kind of concept. What type of device is being used, because Google will return different results based on, are you a mobile device or are you a PC? If your website doesn't respond well to mobile devices, it's slow or it isn't responsive, Google will eliminate you from any mobile searches. So that's an important thing. So age of content on the website and its relevance to the search query. So you always hear people say you should keep your website fresh and up to date. Well, it's important. Google actually keeps track of how often you update your website, how often you update your Google profile. And then the last thing is a good user experience. So Google actually rates the experience on your website, again, for a mobile device and for a PC device. And so all of those factors go into play when somebody does a search, and in a split second, Google goes through all of this and returns results for you. So it's all stuff to consider. So what I'd like to do is kind of show you some tools and how to figure all of this stuff out. So first thing, Google My Business. We've talked about this already. Go out, get your business registered on Google. Use a lot of good keywords in the description of your website, in the products that you sell, so Google knows what it is that's important to you and then can tie it to search results. The next thing is they provide a little tool called Test My Site. So you go out there and you test your site. You go to g.co/test my site, you put in your website. It'll return results. How does it work for a mobile device? How does it work for a PC device? And then it'll grade you. And it's just, it'll actually tell you, here are all the elements that loaded, and this is how fast or slow that they were. And it's a great tool of actually testing out your website to determine, does it meet the standards of Google? So that's tool number one. The next tool is called the Search Console. And so that's at g.co Search Console. So this has got a wealth of information out there about your website, which queries cause your site to appear in search results, which links, websites link to your site. So that's another key factor in Google. How many sites actually link to your website? And does your website work well with mobile? So yet another tool out there to go get an indication of how does Google think your website is reacting. And then there's Google Analytics. We talked really quickly about that. It's another tool to give you a whole wealth of information about not necessarily on the performance of your website, but who's visiting your website, how often are they visiting, where are they from, what's the path that they take on your website, like a whole wealth of information that's out there. I see a question out there. I have a registered NGO. Can I use a Facebook page to start my visibility or start with website? Which comes first? It's a great question. I know a lot of businesses that say, oh, I don't need a website. I have a great presence on social media, and that's great. A lot of times when you search for a business, you actually see their social media profiles show up first on the results. So Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, they've all done a great job of kind of optimizing SEO so that your profile shows up on there. I'm a firm believer that a website is an important thing to have. It is one of the key factors that Google uses in searching. So if you don't have a website and Google can't find your website, then that to me is a problem. Even if you use Google's free website and all you have is a home page, an about us, and a contact page, it's still a website, and it's still something that Google can latch onto and understand what your business is. LinkedIn, same thing. LinkedIn does a great job of SEO, but mostly on your name, not necessarily your business. If I search Rob Del Mastro, you're going to see my LinkedIn profile as the top result that's there. I don't think it does a great job because you can have a business profile on LinkedIn. I don't think it does a great job of that. It'll show up, but it's not something that's, I think, ultimately considered in search engine optimization. All right, so this last one that I'm going to show you is called Google Trends. It's really kind of a neat tool that they provide. You can put words in there. So like I said, I ran a co-working space before coming here. So I would come in here and type in co-working, and it would actually show me trends of key phrases that people were searching to find co-working spaces, key phrases they were searching to understand the products and services of co-working. It's a great tool. It's one of those things that you can get lost in and spend hours just playing around with words to see, what the world is searching on. But it's just another tool that you have available to you to help you identify what are those key phrases, keywords that you want your customers to use to find your business. Once you've got those, then you start embedding them into your website. And again, that's another whole section of how to do that. But you take your header, your H1 titles that are titles on your pages, and you make them those keywords. You make the name of the page those keywords. That's what Google's going to search and say, oh, okay, this person. So when I did co-working space, I had meeting rooms. So I made sure I had the term meeting rooms in many of my pages in prominent, bolded, highlighted positions, so that Google knew meeting rooms was a key thing for me. And then I'd come into here and I'd put in meeting rooms and see, okay, what are those phrases people are using? And then I would embed those phrases in my descriptions of my services. So those are, at a very high level, that is how you work search engine optimization and some tools to use it with. One keynote about doing searches on your own business. Google remembers your search results. So if your business is MSBDC at clarkuniversity.com and you search it 10 times, Google's going to remember that you always clicked on a certain link, and that's going to be put up the top of your search results. Flip your browser into incognito search, and that erases all of your history and who you are. So it's really kind of a native search. So when you're searching your business to see its search results, this is the cleanest way to do it. So it has no history. This is like as clean as it can get. The only problem with an incognito search is the near me phrase doesn't work because locations are turned off. So if I wanted to search for co-working spaces in Worcester, I would literally have to type co-working spaces in Worcester, not co-working spaces near me. So just a little tool trick, do incognito searches to see your results. So here are the tools that I highlighted. We are going to hand out this presentation in the end, so you don't have to scramble to write these down. You'll get them in the presentation. So how to point multiple domains to the same website. So that's a little complicated of an answer, and it varies greatly by the provider of your website. So I really can't give you a definitive answer to that. There's one cheap way of doing it, and that is you can forward a URL to a website. The problem with that is that that is looked upon negatively by Google. Google knows that it's a forward and not an actual, and it doesn't work. So you have to actually go into the website tool that you're using, and in that tool, there's got to be a means to add a domain, add a new domain to your website. A lot of the online tool builders like Shopify, like Squarespace, like Wix, it's just a menu option, add a domain. You type in your domain, it goes out and actually reads that Whois record. It says, oh, I see you've got it at Google. I'm going to proceed forward with Google to move or to change the records to now point to here. But it's all based on the provider that you're using. All right, 47. I've got 15 minutes left. All right, got to go quick. Cybersecurity. In the month of October, I'll be doing multiple cybersecurity webinars. Again, we're just going to touch real lightly on it here. But what is cybersecurity? We hear a lot about it today in the news, and at a high level, unauthorized access to information and or systems. It's really straightforward and plain. Our world today consists of so many things that interact with the internet. Every single one of those is an access point for cybersecurity. So even if you've got a stove or a refrigerator that talks to the internet, that is an entry point for someone to stage an attack on your information, whether that be your personal information or your business information. We all use our phones for personal and for business. We all have laptops that we use to shop on Amazon and to, run our business. All of those vehicles, anything that's connected to the internet, is a potential gateway for cybersecurity. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that you can do to protect yourself, but just to understand all of these things are exposures to cybersecurity. So I always hear people say, well, I'm a small business, I don't have to worry about cybersecurity. Well, that's not true. Some interesting studies have come out and found that, we've all heard of phishing, right? We get an email, it looks real, but the reality is it's someone trying to get information about us. There's a variation of that called whaling, which is going after high-end CEOs, CFOs of businesses. When I ran a one-person consulting company, I interacted with CEOs of large insurance companies. And so what these cybersecurity folks are doing is hacking into these small businesses that tend to have no safeguards in their network or on their PCs, getting access to their email, then finding the emails of these CEOs, and then going after the CEOs with that email now to try to hack them. So everybody's a target for cybersecurity, whether you're a 1-person or a 2,000 person company. So just keep that in mind. People are often the weakest link. Unfortunately, we're curious people. When we get that email, we know it's wrong to click on it, but man, we just want to click on it just in case it isn't. And training of employees is such a key piece of cybersecurity. And the next couple of bullets are, the kind of the key things. How far do you want to go? How much money do you have to invest in it? It is a really difficult question for a small business starting up. It's costly, it's technical, and it's complicated. There are many frameworks out there that'll tell you how to do it. Which one do you choose? It is a very difficult world to navigate, but there are some simple things you can do. But the bottom line is cybersecurity can destroy your business. If you get hacked and all of your customer emails are hacked and people go after that, if you've got an online business and people hack that and somehow figure out how to get to your merchant account, which then gets hacked, it all comes back to you, and there's a reputation then you have to deal with. So I personally like the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They have kind of a framework that businesses should use for cybersecurity: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Very similar to just general project management, right? Identify what your assets are that could be attacked, whether that's laptops. What information do you keep of your customers? What information do you keep for yourself? Where is that information? When you put in your bank account in QuickBooks, okay, now QuickBooks has your bank account information. How secure is your logon and password to QuickBooks? Because all that information's in there now. So identify where your exposures are, protect, put in basic practices to protect what you've got, whether that be malware systems, strong passwords. Maybe you want to put a firewall in if you've got a storefront, separating out guest Wi-Fi from your own Wi-Fi. How are you going to protect your assets? And then detect. Probably the most difficult component is, how do you know you've been hacked? other than the big screen that comes up and says, this is a ransomware. Often we get hacked and we don't even know it until somebody calls us up and says, hey, I've been getting 50 emails from you. You know, what's going on? Respond, have a plan in place of how you're going to respond if you are hacked. And then finally recover. How do you recover from that? Do you have cybersecurity to help pay for the repurchase of machines because they were hacked and they were destroyed? So again, I've got a webinar coming up in the month of October. I recommend everyone to kind of take that webinar. I'll go into much more detail of all these things. All right, I've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to breeze through these, but these are some of the touch points of cyber security. Phishing, we all know that. Those are the emails that we get to try to get us to put in information. Physical security, a lot of people overlook the whole physical security thing. If you've got a storefront, you know, do you have cameras in there? Do you have doors that automatically lock after a certain amount of hour or after a certain hour? What are the physical things that you've put in place so people can't come in and grab a laptop from you? Passwords, you can spend probably about 10 hours on passwords talking about them, but you know, the way passwords work real quickly is, let's just say I've got a Yahoo account, right? Yahoo gets hacked. So they know my Yahoo email and they know my Yahoo password. They read my mail and say, oh, you do shopping on Amazon. Let's go to Amazon with that email and let's try that same password that I just hacked off of Yahoo. Hey, look, I can get into Amazon now. Oh my gosh, they have a credit card on file. I can go shopping at will at this point now. And so that's how dangerous, you know, just getting hacked is. It can spiral into so many different things. Oh, let's see. Here's his credit card information stored on Amazon. Let me take that and now go online and go shopping. So it's a serious thing. It's a real thing, you know, and it's out there. Cybersecurity, cyber insurance. It's expensive, but it's something that you should consider buying to help protect you if you do get hacked. All right, so I'm running out of time, and I want to be able to take any questions if they exist. But that, so there's some helpful links on cybersecurity. You can actually take a quiz and see how savvy you are on cybersecurity. Okay, so that kind of wraps up. Like I said, it was a fire hose of information. I apologize for that, but if you want, we do provide webinars on all of these topics. Here's my information. If you ever do want to just have a question, shoot me an email. Be more than happy to answer it for you. Sarah has graciously popped in a link to our webinar survey. We would highly appreciate it if you kind of fill out the survey. It should take you no more than 3 minutes, and it just helps us identify, are we on the right path for this. So with that, any questions that are out there?
Oh, come on now. You can unmute
That was a lot of
yourself
information.
and ask. I know there were some comments towards the end. Donna was asking about LinkedIn.
Yep, and I did answer that one.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
And then I'm not sure what this means. How to point multiple domains to the same website.
I did answer that one as well.
Please, I wasn't even listening. My bad. All right, well then I'm going to be quiet.
Well, thank you, Nancy. I see Nancy's comment. All right, so like I said, we are recording this. I'm going to put this up on our YouTube channel so you can actually review it if you want. Sarah is going to hand out, we'll send out this presentation as well as a PDF. And again, if you have 3 minutes, we ask that you click on the link that Sarah put in there and fill out our webinar survey. I think
I'll
you'll
also
probably
send the link out in the email. I'll send the link to our YouTube channel and all the information that Rob has already put on that. You'll be getting that in doses. So
okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the day, and hopefully we'll see you on some other webinars that we end up doing. Thank you.